We call it Your Take, a chance for you to ask questions directly to experts. And joining us is someone who's getting a lot of phone calls right about now because he is Chris Hall with Meadowbrook Insurance. Obviously insurance right now with everything that's been happening with the flooding all over Metro Detroit, the Grosse Pointes, Detroit, and so many other places right now suffering. And Chris, you know, we've been getting a lot of questions as well. We thought we'd bring you into the fold tonight and talk about this. The first question comes to us from Kristen saying, I wonder how many people in Detroit have flood insurance that is normally a separate policy. A fail could potentially leave devastation, goes on to say, for some, and line the pockets of others. When you hear something like that, give us an idea as to what it is that you'd like people to know.
Wow. Well, it's one of those things that really boils down to education around insurance. A lot of people have no idea that flood isn't even covered by a homeowner's policy. And, you know, there's reasons behind that. But the bottom line is you really need to take a look at your policy, talk to your agent. And water is such a touchy subject when it comes to insurance. So if you live in one of these areas that are prone to floods or water backups, you really need to take a close look at your policy and, you know, make sure that you're not caught off guard at the time of the claim to make sure that, you know, if you need assistance, it's going to be there for you. So
another question that we've been getting, and you've been getting a lot of, is are flooded basements covered by homeowners insurance? How do you, how do you answer that?
Sure. Well, the term flood is, again, it's very defined in the insurance world. So you have two things that might come to your remedy at the time of a loss. So if it's actually a true flood, the water encroached from the outside. And as we just discussed, that is a completely separate policy called a flood policy. A lot of people don't think to buy flood insurance, or they don't think they need it because they're not located in a next to a lake or a river. But the other thing that you may have coverage for is what's called water backup. Water backup's a little different. That's when the water comes up from, in most cases, when we're talking basement, it's going to be a sump pump. So, you know, don't assume that you don't have coverage. It's always a good idea to contact your insurance provider. Don't tell them you have a flood or water backup. Let them take the facts of the situation and guide you through the process.
We have another question coming from Lisa, who's a Fox 2 viewer, who basically is talking about what the mayor of these cities can do to help with rescue fund money and one federal money. And one thing that we know is that FEMA is coming to town day after tomorrow to kind of assess the situation, check things out. But this person's asking specifically about Detroiters. Some insurance don't even offer flood coverage in Detroit. Residents in Detroit just went through this 6 months ago. This is beyond ludicrous. When you talk about Detroiters having flood coverage or not having flood coverage, what is it that you'd like them to know? Because you talk about the different types of coverage, right?
Right. And, you know, sometimes when you buy a home, the mortgage company will require you to buy flood insurance if they've determined that you're in a high risk zone. But aside from that, most people, again, don't even know that these policies exist or had no idea that they might need it. But basically, flood insurance is categorized depending on your floodplain in the area that you live in the country. There's basically high, medium, and low risk zones. Again, most people are aware if they're in a high risk zone, but 25% of the claims that are filed on a flood insurance policy come from either low or medium risk zones. So it's always a good idea to know your risk. There's a great website called floodsmart.gov that you can punch in your address and get an idea of where your property lies in the 100-year floodplain and to help you make an educated decision of whether or not you should purchase flood insurance or not.
Lots more viewer questions coming in right now. Another one that you've gotten as well. Does auto insurance cover floods in any way? And if so, how?
Right. Well, so with auto insurance, it's a different story. We are all familiar with the term full coverage. Really what that means is you have collision coverage and comprehensive coverage. The latter being kind of the catch-all for anything that's not a collision. So for those of you who have full coverage on your vehicle, that implies that you also have comprehensive. Comprehensive is the part of your policy that will typically cover a flood. So especially if you have a loan on your vehicle, you most likely have full coverage on your vehicle. Unfortunately, for those of us with PLPD, that means you don't have any collision or comprehensive, and unfortunately, those expenses will be out of pocket.
Well, Chris Hall, we have many more questions coming to us from Fox 2 viewers right now. We're going to come back in the 6 o'clock hour and talk more to you about exactly how all this stuff works. It's called Your Take. Chris Hall with Meadowbrook Insurance taking your questions right now about this really frustrating situation. We'll have much more tonight on Fox 2 News at 6.